unlike the sets of twins that litter the plots of horror movies, as children, my sister and I were never quite in sync. Instead of channeling our rambunctious energy towards haunting our neighborhood, rather, my sister and I chose to passionately focus on, well, haunting each other. We were like gunpowder and a lit fuse. Put us in close proximity, and there was sure to be damage. Now, we've thankfully mellowed out since then, but through our years of active combat, one code reigned supreme: no snitching. Whether I had accidentally stubbed my toe while engaging in some tomfoolery, or playfully gouged out my sister's eye, almost no consequence of our shenanigans was too extreme for this code of silence to apply. However, as we grew out of bunk beds and stories shared by flashlight beneath pillow forts, the scope of our snitching policy grew beyond its nefarious origin. Whether it was an embarrassing secret, a personal grievance, or an expression of guilt, admissions tacitly passed between us with the assumption that they would never be heard by another. Pull a door that says push in front of an audience? It happens, man. Need an alibi after farting in a crowd? Sure, I guess. Lied about your entire life history to a stranger? No problem. Your secret is safe with me. By sharing secrets with each other, we could share parts of ourselves while avoiding the very real possibility of outside punishment and rejection. It was our safety net, a shared refuge to cope with the increasing pressure of the outside world. But as we grew to depend more and more on the space between us, its purpose no longer aligned with its results. The narrative changed. Everything became a potential secret, and more importantly, everything was worth keeping a secret, just between us. Our dependence on one another was a self-fulfilling prophecy. It proved to us that we could only rely on each other, with each new admission serving to test our loyalty and thereby the strength of what we believed to be our one truly unshakable bond. Our shame kept us in line, and if not for our shared secrets, which inevitably became our shared burdens, we felt nobody would truly know us, that we would be completely alone to deal with our greatest flaws and uncertainties. Funnily enough, it's that loneliness that I remember most clearly the night I discovered my sister for the first time using heroin. Slurred whispers were spoken between pale lips under the thick cover of darkness, weaving a tale too dark or too difficult for her to have shared without the potent drug's numbing effects. No secret we had shared previously compared to the magnitude of the words spoken in that claustrophobic bedroom. Nothing by the night's end was certain, except one truth. No matter what, the knowledge I learned would never leave my tongue, even if it meant watching my sister die. Through my silence, I was certain I would prove yet again to my sister that she could rely on me like nobody else. I simply had to. After all we had was each other. At the time, I had no idea the sticky silk of the secret would grab hold of me, defining my teenage relationship with my sister and trapping us in a web of painful silence. While the nature and degree of the secret kept between my sister and I might be unique, the reasoning behind our secrecy is universal. We believed we simply could not ask for help. For many of us, this idea has been strongly reinforced throughout our lives. It's no wonder, as we increasingly live in a community where individual performance and independence is prized, and where dependence on one another is taught to be burdensome, something to be avoided for fear of broadcasting one's incompetence and making one vulnerable to judgment. The pressure to be in control or appear in control has never been higher. This pressure blinded my sister and I. We were unable or unwilling to see past those fears, and so rather than liberating us, each secret we shared only reinforced our belief that our experiences were worthy of shame, that we were worthy of shame. While deep down, we both understood that neither of us had the appropriate resources to deal with the harrowing complications of addiction, to us there was no risk and no burden that outweighed the shame of merely admitting there was a problem too large for us to solve on our own. Instead of solving it, our energy was directed into something much more manageable, covering it up. Need a buddy to join you on a drug run? It's okay, I got you covered. Come home in the early hours of the morning, beaten, crying, and bloody. It's okay, I'll clean you up while you prepare your next injection. Heart stopped beating after one shot too many. It's okay, I'll grab the Narcan and So long as I get to see you breathing again, no one will ever need to know. It's okay. Your secret is safe with me. Until it wasn't. And I learned firsthand that while asking for help can be difficult, not asking for help can be deadly. Failure became the ringing of an ambulance, the very first one to answer a call to our house for heroin after years of silence. Failure was walking down the stairs that night, hoping the commotion below was innocent, only to face two angry police officers ready for questioning and a horde of EMTs struggling to resuscitate my sister. Failure was seeing the look on my mother's face as she discovered for the first time the very real possibility that her daughter would die before she would, perhaps even that night. But more than anything, failure was knowing that everything could have been avoided if I had just spoken up. While not all of us have spent time riding shotgun in an ambulance, all of us have kept a secret out of fear, and all of us have refused help, at least once, when we sorely needed it. We've all judged ourselves harshly and in turn assumed somebody else would do the same. But where do we go from here? How do we break out of our compulsion to MacGyver our way through life and instead normalize asking for the help we need and deserve? And most importantly, how can we make sure that we're there for someone who might not know how to ask for help in the first place? I believe it starts with two things. The first is talking, specifically the sharing of stories, like many of us are doing today. We need to be conscious, however, of the narratives we portray, being careful not to fall into the trap of demonizing our shortcomings. Instead, we must encourage the exchange of experiences through example, especially our secret struggles, so we can build better connection and trust with one another, something we're in dire need of in an increasingly competitive world. Shame comes from what we've learned around us, so it's only together that its hold over us can loosen, and we can regain power over our shameful secrets and our identities. As stories spread, the shame of feeling stuck, and with it, the stigma around asking for help can change. Secondly, we need to try and listen for silent pleas. When I believed I was truly stuck, despite my desire never to tell another soul about my secret, there was nothing I wished for more than for someone to magically intuit the help I needed. For someone to remind me that my sister and I were not alone in our situation. I'm sure I'm not alone in this sentiment. It's time for us to share the burden of asking for help by creating social safety nets. Encourage yourself and your peers to reach out and offer help to one another. We're all struggling, especially as finals approach, but there are little ways each of us can pitch in for somebody else, even if that person hasn't been able to voice that desire for help. It can be as little as sending in a check-in text or offering to grab somebody lunch. We need to remind ourselves that it's impossible to know somebody else's full story and that a person's achievements are hardly representative of who they are as a person. It's okay to be lost sometimes. Nobody has gotten where they are alone. Certainly not my sister, nor myself. With this, I ask you to take one final thought with you. Think about the codes of secrecy you have carried since youth and the burdens you've chosen to carry alone because of it. While it's important to remind yourself of how far you've come alone, please take some time as you leave to reflect on what you believe to be shameful about yourself and others so we can begin to detangle ourselves from our own webs of secrets, learn to ask for help and rescue others, and hopefully build a vibrant, loving community along the way.